What if the part of you you've been trying to suppress was actually the key to your awakening? We've all heard about the light, love, compassion, healing energy, but no one told you that the light means nothing without the shadow. And no, I'm not talking about the cliché idea of facing your fears. I'm talking about a sacred dansan ancient alchemy that few dare to enter. Because here's the truth they don't teach in mainstream spirituality. Your shadow isn't your enemy, it's your hidden teacher. And light? It's not about blinding positivity, it's a razor-sharp awareness forged in the furnace of darkness. This video isn't about good vibes only or whitewashed enlightenment. It's about initiation into the forgotten balance, into a deeper, rawer, more powerful kind of transformation. You're about to uncover the ancient secrets of light and shadow work. Secrets whispered in mystery schools, etched into temple walls, and guarded by mystics who knew you can't truly ascend until you've descended first. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the hidden wisdom that lies beyond duality. We'll journey through the ancient roots of light and shadow work from the Hermetics, Gnostics, and shamans. Why true healing begins when you stop rejecting your inner darkness. The forgotten purpose of spiritual adversity, and practical, grounded ways to apply this esoteric knowledge to your own awakening. You'll learn why your pain, your rage, your shame are not stains on your soul, but initiations. And how real integration doesn't look like perfection, it looks like power. So, if you've ever felt stuck in your spiritual path, if you've ever wondered why just thinking positive didn't work, or if you've sensed there's a deeper path hidden beneath the surface of light, then stay with me. Because by the end of this journey, you won't just know about light and shadow work. You'll be living it. This is not a lesson, it's a revelation. Let's begin. Long before the modern spiritual movement began preaching light and love, there were those who knew a deeper truth. That light alone cannot illuminate the soul. In the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, students weren't initiated with incense and affirmations. They were led into darkness literally, blindfolded, stripped of identity, and cast into underground chambers. There, in silence and shadow, they faced what the priests called the dweller of the threshold. Not a demon, not a monster, but a mirror, a reflection of every unacknowledged part of themselves. Because to pass into light, they had to earn it by first walking through their own inner underworld. The Gnostics, too, spoke of duality not as opposition, but as integration. They believed the cosmos was born of a divine fracture light and darkness emerging as siblings. Not enemies, but partners in the evolution of the soul. And then there were the shamans from the Andes to Siberia, who entered trance states not to escape the world, but to retrieve lost fragments of their psyche from what they called the shadow realms. These weren't fantasy tales. These were technologies of the spirit, maps left behind by ancient initiates who knew enlightenment is not the absence of shadow, it's the full embrace of it. But somewhere along the path, the wisdom was sanitized. The New Age movement, in its hunger for hope, began to amputate half the equation. Shadow was labeled low vibration. Darkness was something to clear, release, or worse, ignore. What was once a sacred descent into self became a bypass. And spiritual seekers, in their chase for purity, unknowingly split themselves in two. But the ancients warned us, that which you disown will rule you from the dark. Carl Jung echoed this when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow work isn't some psychological trend. It's a reawakening of what the initiates once knew. That within your deepest wounds lies encoded wisdom. And that true power arises not from escaping your darkness but from reconciling with it. So why was this wisdom hidden? Because real transformation threatens control. A soul who has integrated both light and shadow cannot be manipulated with fear, cannot be sold fake salvation, cannot be broken by pain. They become sovereign. And sovereign beings are dangerous to systems built on dependency. This is why mystery schools went underground, why their teachings were veiled in symbols and guarded by oaths. Not because they wanted secrecy, but because humanity wasn't ready for the responsibility that came with that freedom. But you're here now, which means you are ready to remember. to reclaim, to resurrect the lost wisdom that's been buried beneath centuries of fear and forgetfulness. Next, we begin decoding the ancient mechanics of light and shadow within your own being, how they speak to you, and how they transform you. The descent begins, and in it, the ascent is born. There's a reason every myth, every sacred text, and every hero's journey starts in darkness. It's not a coincidence. It's a blueprint. The moment you decide to awaken, the shadows do not retreat. They rise. But here's what no one tells you. That's not punishment. It's invitation. To what? To inner alchemy, sacred science of turning your hidden wounds into wisdom. You see, light and shadow are not rivals battling for control. They are currents within your consciousness. Each one holds a frequency, a function, a purpose. Light is clarity. It reveals, it inspires, it expands. But light without grounding becomes illusion, a blinding high that disconnects you from your body, your truth, your humanness. Shadow is contraction. It conceals, it confronts, it compresses. But shadow without awareness becomes poison. It festers in silence, feeding fear and shame. But together they form the sacred spiral, the cycle of death and rebirth inside you. One pulls you inward, the other calls you forward. This is the forgotten rhythm of the soul. Think of it like this. Your psyche is a vast temple. The light is the dome, shows you the stars, the divine possibilities. But the shadow is the foundation, the buried stone, the hidden architecture of everything you believe, fear, crave. To ignore the foundation is to build your temple on sand. And yet, this is exactly what many do. They chase the high of light bliss, manifestation, alignment while locking the shadow in the basement. But the shadow does not disappear. It waits. It waits for the mirror. It waits for the heartbreak. It waits for the moment you can no longer pretend everything is okay. And when it rises, it speaks. Not in words but in triggers, patterns, compulsions. The sudden anger that doesn't match the moment. The self-sabotage that creeps in right before success. The relationships that collapse the moment love feels too real. These are not curses. They are clues. Each shadow is a fragment of your soul, exiled in time, waiting to be reintegrated. A memory, a wound, a belief left behind in moments of trauma, rejection, or silence. And each time you turn toward it with awareness, something miraculous happens. Alchemy. You don't kill the shadow. You transmute it. The rage becomes a boundary. The fear becomes intuition. The shame becomes empathy. The grief becomes devotion. But this process is not instant. It's cyclical. You will meet the same patterns again and again. Not because you're failing, but because you're going deeper. The spiral does not move in a straight line. It descends before it ascends. Each time, pulling you closer to your center, to your wholeness. And here's the sacred paradox. The more shadow you're willing to face, the more light you're able to hold. Because light isn't just what you see. It's what you become when you stop running from your own darkness. This is the essence of shadow work. Not therapy, not healing, not fixing, but integration. It's standing at the doorway of your pain and saying, I will not abandon you again. And when you do, the shadow bows. Because it never wanted control. It just wanted to be acknowledged. That is when transformation begins. Not when you escape your darkness, but when you allow it to lead you back to yourself. Next, we'll go deeper. Into the paradoxes. The misconceptions. And the secret reason why some spiritual paths keep you trapped no matter how much light you chase. We've opened the door. Now let's walk through it. You've likely been told. Focus only on the positive. Raise your vibration. Be love, be light. But what if I told you that this very advice, while well-meaning, could be the reason you feel stuck? You see, one of the most dangerous illusions in spirituality is the myth of purity. The idea that you must be spotless to be worthy. That you must always be joyful to be enlightened. That your shadow must be vanquished for your light to shine. This is not only untrue, it is spiritually paralyzing, because when you believe that discomfort is failure, you begin to reject the very process designed to evolve you. True transformation is messy. It is not a straight line toward bliss. It is a spiral dance through chaos, clarity, death, and rebirth. Even the ancient mystics knew this. In alchemical texts, the shadow was symbolized by the black phase. It was the first and most essential stage. A putrefaction, a breakdown of all that is false. Not as punishment, but as preparation for the gold that comes later. The Christian mystics spoke of the dark night of the soul, a sacred emptiness where even the divine goes silent. It is not abandonment. It is the space where the ego dissolves and the soul is revealed. And yet, modern spirituality often skips this step. It glamorizes the outcomey ascension, manifestation, bliss while demonizing the descent. But without the descent, there is no depth. And without depth, there is no integration. Let's be clear. Shadow work is not about dwelling in pain. It's about witnessing it without collapsing into it. There's another misconception, that once you do the work, you'll be free from all darkness. But the truth is, shadow work is not a one-time ritual, it is a lifelong relationship. Your shadow evolves as you do. At each new level of consciousness, a new layer emerges. Not because you're broken, but because you're finally ready to meet the next piece of yourself. And here's where it gets truly paradoxical. Sometimes, your light amplifies your shadow. The brighter your awareness, the more clearly you see your distortions. The more power you carry, the more responsibility you hold to wield it wisely. This is why so many spiritual teachers fall. Not because they never had the light, but because they refused to keep integrating the shadow it illuminated. Light expands your capacity. Shadow reveals where that capacity still leaks. So no, light isn't better than shadow. And shadow isn't your enemy. They are each other's mirror. And you are the vessel that unites them. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. To embody a sacred paradox. That you can hold grief and gratitude in the same breath. That you can be both a wound and a healer. Both fierce and soft. Both luminous and primal. This is the path of integration. Not a straight road, not an easy one. But it is real. And it is yours. Now ask yourself, what part of me have I rejected in the name of being spiritual? What emotion have I buried in the name of staying high vibe? And what would happen if I stopped running from my shadow and started listening to it? The answer to that last question? Liberation. Because the parts of you that you fear the most may hold the power you've been seeking all along. In the next chapter, we'll leave theory behind and enter sacred action. You'll receive the rituals, the questions, the practices to live this truth. To alchemize your shadow into strength, you don't need to travel to a temple in the Himalayas to begin this work. You don't need to chant under the stars or light 100 candles. Although you can. The true temple is you. And it begins with one radical act. Presence. The shadow reveals itself in the everyday, not in the sacred texts, but in the sharp comment that triggered you. In the jealousy that flared when someone else succeeded. In the numbness you felt when you were supposed to care. So how do you actually begin to integrate your shadow? Practice 1, the mirror ritual. Stand before your reflection not to judge, but to witness. Look into your eyes, hold the gaze, and say aloud, all of me is welcome here. Say it again, mean it. Then ask, what part of me have I abandoned? Wait, breathe, listen. Sometimes, it's not a voice you'll hear, but a memory, a sensation, a flicker of emotion. That is the fragment returning home. Practice 2, the trigger journal. Instead of avoiding your triggers, record them. Each time you're emotionally activated, write, what happened? What did I feel? What did it remind me of? What belief surfaced? Then ask, what truth is trying to emerge beneath this reaction? You'll start seeing pattern-souled wounds, unmet needs, ancestral echoes. Your shadow speaks through patterns, and by mapping them, you take back your power. Practice 3, alchemical embodiment. Shadow isn't just mental, it lives in the body. So when grief rises, don't suppress it, dance it. When rage pulses, don't shame it, scream into a pillow. When fear whispers, don't silence it, sit with it, hand on heart, and breathe until it softens. Emotions are not problems to solve. They are messages to translate. Let them speak in movement, sound, stillness, whatever language they need. Practice 4. Sacred storytelling. Write the story of a wound, then rewrite it as if your soul chose that experience for growth. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What gift was hidden in the pain? Who have I become because of it? You are not erasing the pain. You are reframing it, giving it purpose. This is shadow alchemy in its purest form. Practice 5. Create an integration altar. Choose one space in your home. Place an object that represents your light, a candle, a crystal, a feather, and one that represents your shadow, a rock, a burned photo, a journal. Sit with them, speak to them, honor them both, because both have shaped you, and both belong. Remember, this is not about fixing yourself. You are not broken. You are becoming layer by layer, moment by moment. The most powerful people are not the ones who have no darkness. They're the ones who've danced with it and emerged more real, more raw, more radiant. This is not easy work, but it's sacred. It's honest. It's yours. Let these practices be your compass, not to reach the light, but to become the bridge between both worlds. In the final chapter, we'll close the circle. You'll remember why this path chose you, and why embracing your darkness may be the most divine act of all. So now you know. This path you walk, it was never about escaping darkness. It was about learning to see in the dark. Light without shadow is blindness. Shadow without light is despair. But together, they birth a wholeness the world has forgotten. You are not here to be half of yourself. You are not here to smile through suffering or silence your storms. You are here to embody the sacred tension, to stand in the center of the paradox, radiant and raw, open and scarred, divine and human. You see, the true mark of awakening is not how much light you can radiate, but how much shadow you can hold without running from it. This is the return of the whole self. The self that doesn't flinch when old wounds echo. The self that no longer seeks to be enough because it already is. The self that doesn't just chase enlightenment, but becomes a lighthouse for others lost in their own storm. And maybe, just maybe, this is what they were trying to teach us all along. Not to deny the darkness, but to carry the light through it. So ask yourself, one last time, what would it mean? To love every part of you? Not to tolerate, not to heal away, but to honor. Because beneath your scars, behind your projections, within your shadows, is a sacred truth waiting to be lived. And that truth is you. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Leave a comment. Share your story. Speak your truth. And if you're ready for more revelations, more forgotten wisdom, subscribe. And let's keep walking this path together. Because in a world obsessed with light, you've chosen to remember the shadow. And that is the most radiant act of all. The alchemy is within you. Now, live it.